1 hour ago, the royal family shattered months of silence with a jaw-dropping revelation. DNA results are in and Prince Louis's true identity has been confirmed. But how did we even get here? From a single photo that sparked global suspicion to secret hospital letter, years, and a second family claiming shocking resemblance, this story is unlike anything we've seen before. What really happened behind palace walls? Stay with us as we unravel the truth moment by moment. The bombshell revelation. At exactly 9:15 am today, a formal announcement from Kensington Palace shook the nation. The palace confirmed the results of a confidential DNA test conducted on Prince Louis, the youngest child of Prince William and Princess Catherine. According to 3 independent laboratories, all testing showed with 100% certainty that Louis is the biological son of the royal couple. This revelation ended a storm of rumors that had been brewing for 7 weeks following a viral theory questioning Louis's parentage. The path. Alice's message was clear, but its calm tone belied the emotional storm had tried to contain. The statement emphasized that the family had taken the difficult step of genetic testing not to respond to gossip or to provide clarity and stability for their son's future. Senior royal aides were quick to clarify the process began only after a series of 5 anonymous letters arrived at the palace, each containing increasingly detailed claims about a power outage on the night of his birth, April 23, 2018. These letters, coupled with relentless speculation online, made silence no longer an option. For the royal family, it wasn't just about public perception, it was about Prince Louis, now 7 years old, growing up with certainty about who he is. Within 30 minutes of the palace statement, major global news outlets carried the headline, "Royal Family Confirms Prince Louis' Identity." Social media lit up with mixed reactions. Some offered congratulations and relief, others apologized for feeding into rumors, and a vocal minority accused the palace of orchestrating a cover-up. But inside the royal walls, the focus wasn't on the headlines, it was on Catherine, who reportedly broke down in tears after hearing the results. William held her hand as they read the document together, finally feeling the weight of doubt lifted after 2 harrowing weeks of testing. The royal physician who had supervised the process also issued a separate note stating the DNA test followed full ISO-certified protocols and no corners were cut. Samples from Prince William, Princess Catherine, and Prince Louis were handled under intense security and cross-verified across 3 independent labs located in London, Edinburgh, and Cambridge. With the science confirmed, the monarchy took its final step: full transparency. The family had chosen to meet conspiracy with facts, and it was this decision that set the stage for what would come next, a behind-the-scenes drama that almost tore them apart. But what could drive one of the world's most private families to take such a bold, unprecedented step? The answer lies not in the laboratories, but in a garden party held just 2 months ago, when a single photograph triggered a chain reaction. A normal day turned into the spark for a worldwide identity crisis, and behind the smiles, Prince William and Princess Catherine began noticing the stares. What started as whispers online would soon turn into a question that neither of them could ignore. The moment that sparked it all. It began on a sunny afternoon at the annual Buckingham Palace garden party on June 12, 2025. Among the sea of guests' laughter and floral dresses, a young boy caught the public's attention, not for his charm, but for something that felt off. Prince Louis, holding his mother's hand, looked up at the crowd with curious eyes, but his features under the intense sunlight appeared strikingly different from his siblings. His hair had a lighter glint, and his face carried expressions that didn't seem to match either Prince George or Princess Charlotte. Photographers captured hundreds of photos that day. Within 2 hours, images of the royal children appeared online, shared on platforms like X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Then someone did something unexpected. They created a side-by-side photo comparison of the 3 children. George had William's strong chin, and Kate's blue eyes. Charlotte looked like a miniature version of her mother, but the internet wasn't convinced. "Is it just me, or does Louis look nothing like them?" one tweet read. That tweet was shared 47,000 times within 36 hours, and a digital wildfire was born. Royal watchers and amateur analysts began digging through old images of Louis from his 2019 Trooping the Colour debut to school drop-offs in 2023. Nothing escaped scrutiny. They noted minor differences in bone structure, hair texture, and even body language. Some posted overlays, others presented genetic deviation charts. What began as innocent curiosity quickly took a darker turn, with online users speculating about hospital mix-ups, surrogates, or even more sinister theories. Catherine reportedly saw the images on her private phone feed later that night, and for the first time felt the pit of her knees forming deep inside. Inside the palace, alarm bells rang. A small team from the Royal Communications Office began documenting the trend. In just 5 days, over 18 million people had engaged with content questioning Prince Louis's parentage. What was once dismissed as internet chatter had become a full-scale reputation or crisis. William remained composed publicly, but in private he was furious, not just at the rumors but at how easily the world had turned its gaze toward his 7-year-old son with such cruelty. As speculation grew, so did the pressure. The family would soon be forced to face the impossible. But before the palace could respond, something unexpected happened. A plain envelope with no return address arrived at Kensington Palace on a Monday morning. Inside were for typed pages, and what they described sent chills through the staff. It wasn't a theory, it was a timeline, a confession, a claim from someone who said they were there the night Louis was born. What started as an internet spiral had now opened the gates to something far darker, and soon the letters wouldn't stop coming. Anonymous letters arrive. On the morning of August 4, 2025, Royal Mail sorters at Kensington Palace noticed something strange. Among hundreds of fan letters and charity requests sat a stark, white envelope with no return address and unusually neat handwriting. Inside they found for typed pages laying out a disturbingly detailed account of April 23, 2018, the night Prince Louis was born. The writer claimed to have worked at the private hospital where Catherine gave birth and described an event previously unknown to the public, a 17-minute power outage that disrupted the maternity ward. What followed in that letter shook everyone. The writer said that during the outage, 2 babies born within 40 minutes of each other were temporarily placed in the same room, under emergency lighting. Nurses were reportedly rushing equipment, alarms were beeping, and the atmosphere was one of controlled chaos. The implication was terrifying. A possible baby switch. The letter listed times, staff initials, and room numbers. No proof was unclosed, but the level of detail was too precise to dismiss. Alice Security immediately flagged it and escalated to senior advisors and ultimately to William himself. 3 days later, a second letter arrived. This time, the envelope contains 2 photographs, floor plans of the maternity ward from 2018 marked in red ink. One area circled matched the room where Catherine had been moved briefly during labor, according to hospital records. The second letter added new claims, overheard conversations between nurses, temporary confusion about which baby was which, and staff instructions to recheck bracelets after the lights come. Again, no names, no return address. But the information inside matched known hospital layouts, delivery timelines, and medical staff rotations from that night. The arrival of a third and fourth letter within the next week left no room for dismissal. Catherine read them late at night with William by her side. She remembered the outage. She remembered the hurried movements, the hushed voices. She remembered not seeing Louis immediately. The doubts, once unimaginable, now took root. What if the unthinkable had happened? What if Louis wasn't theirs? And what if another child somewhere out there was living a life that should have been royal? As the final letter urged them to conduct a DNA test for everyone's peace of mind, the family reached a breaking point. It wasn't just a theory anymore. It was a coordinated campaign, planned, researched, and meant to break the palace silence. William knew they could no longer delay. Catherine agreed, though her heart broke at the thought of testing their own child. But love sometimes means facing even the darkest questions. And so they made the call. The samples were collected, the tests began. And for the next 14 days, the fate of the royal bloodline would hang in limbo, locked in a lap. A stranger's realization. On the evening of July 13, 2025, a woman named Rachel Weller sat in her modest London flat watching the news. The screen showed footage from the recent garden party focusing on Prince Louis, now aged 7, smiling beside his mother. Her husband Daniel walked into the room carrying their son Thomas fresh from the bath in his usual cartoon pajamas. Rachel glanced between the TV and her child and froze. Her eyes darted back and forth. Her breath caught. Her heart began to pound. Thomas had been born on April 23, 2018 at St. Mary's Hospital, the same date and location as Prince Louis. And now, with Louis' face on screen, something clicked in Rachel's mind that she could never unseen. Their son, always slightly different from the two of them, his unusual pale auburn hair, the sky blue eyes. Neither parent shared the refined features they had always chalked up to recessive genes. Suddenly made sense in a horrifying new way. The resemblance to Louis wasn't casual, it was chilling. Rachel showed Daniel the screen, then held up a family photo next to it. Our hands were shaking. Daniel laughed at first until he looked closer. "You're scaring me," he said quietly. They talked late into the night, recalling the chaotic night of Thomas's birth. Rachel had experienced complications, and there was a brief blackout in the ward. They remembered nurses rushing between rooms, hushed conversations, delays, and confusion. Rachel remembered seeing her baby and dim emergency lighting, then being told everything was fine, but no doubt crept in like poison. After a sleepless night, Rachel drafted an email to St. Mary's Hospital administration. She didn't accuse anyone, she simply described the situation. Their son's birth details, the timeline, the power failure, and now the resemblance to the prince. Her finger hovered over the send button for 5 full minutes. She knew what this could mean, but she also knew she couldn't ignore it. With her husband holding her hand, she clicked send. The wheels of fate had begun to turn. The hospital now had 2 families asking questions about the same night, one royal, one not. Quietly, discreetly, they began pulling old logs, staffing records, and emergency reports. The data matched the claims. Meanwhile, inside the palace, William and Catherine received the news about Rachel and Thomas. Now it wasn't just suspicion. It was a possible mirror, a parallel life. If Louis wasn't theirs, then Thomas might be. The next step was unavoidable. The royal couple made the call that would change everything: the DNA decision. On July 17, 2025, at 7 am, an emergency meeting was called inside Kensington Palace. Senior advisors, royal physicians, legal experts, and communications staff gathered in the briefing room. At the head of the table sat Prince William and Princess Catherine, pale and sleep-deprived, their eyes heavy but determined. It was time to act. The private secretary laid out 2 options: continue ignoring the speculation or authorize full DNA testing. Silence no longer felt like strength. It felt like fear. Williamsburg first, he said. He owed his son the truth, no matter how painful. Catherine agreed. Her voice was quiet, but her resolve was firm. "I want to know. I need to know," she said. Royal physicians explained the process. Samples would be taken from William, Catherine, and Louis, sealed under tight security, and delivered to 3 separate laboratories in London, Cambridge, and Yorkshire. Testing would take between 10 to 14 days. Privacy would be nearly impossible. Able to maintain the truth was worth the risk. As palace staff began preparations, the couple had one more decision to make. Should they tell Louis? He was only 7, too young to understand genetics or royal succession. The physician advised they frame it as a routine health check. Catherine agreed. He doesn't need fear, he needs to feel safe. Later that evening, she sat beside Louis as he played with toy soldiers and gently told him the doctors just needed some blood for a family project. The boy nodded and asked if he could have a biscuit after. Catherine smiled through tears. Meanwhile, Rachel and Daniel were contacted by the hospital. Their son Thomas would also be tested in private with full discretion. Samples were taken from both parents and the boy, under the same chain of custody rules. The staff ensured that no media outlet would know, but inside those secure containers packed in ice and sealed by barcode sat the possible unraveling of a monarchy and the answer to a mother's most haunting fear. For the next 2 weeks, the palace held its breath. Behind closed doors, William and Catherine kept up appearances, but in private they were unraveling. Every smile from Louis, every question from George and Charlotte, every normal moment felt so real. If the test came back wrong, what would they do? Could love be enough to overwrite blood? As they waited, they clung to memories, to faith, and to each other, because once the results arrived, nothing would ever be the same. The long wait. From July 18th to August 1st, 2025, the Wales household entered a state of quiet emotional lockdown. William and Catherine continued royal duties, attending a school event for Charlotte, a charity gala, and several brief walkabout. But friends, they said their warmth felt muted. They were functioning, but their hearts were elsewhere. Their thoughts circled around one question: would the test betray them? Every tick of the clock made the silence louder. Catherine spent long hours watching old videos of Louis's early days, his first laugh in November 2018, his first steps in spring 2019, the sound of him calling her mummy. She stayed up late, often alone in the nursery, holding old baby clothes and rereading journal entries from his infancy. Every moment was real, every memory sacred, but the shadow of doubt cast them all in grey. Or she remembering her son or someone else's child? During this time, Louis came down with a mild cold. Normally it would have passed without notice, but Catherine became fixated, calling doctors 3 times in one night, checking his temperature every hour. Realized it wasn't the cold, it was the fear of losing control. She needed to care for Louis, to hold on to what she could as the future hung in limbo. The staff noticed the tension, but said nothing. Behind palace gates, the family was holding itself together with thread. The test that changed everything. The emergency meeting began at exactly 7 a.m. inside Kensington Palace on August 4, 2025. Senior advisors, medical experts, and legal staff sat around a long, Polish table. At the head sat Prince William and Princess Catherine, their eyes tired from 9 sleepless nights. The question before them wasn't political, it was personal. 5 anonymous letters, relentless public speculation, and now another family potentially linked by birth timing had left them with no choice. They had to find the truth, and that meant one thing: DNA testing. The royal physician presented the options calmly. Samples from both parents and Prince Louis would be collected under strict medical protocol, then processed by 3 accredited laboratories, one in Oxford, another in Glasgow, and a third in Vienna for neutral international review. Results would take 10 to 14 days. Every possible legal risk was addressed. Staff signed a confidentiality agreements. William, usually reserved, leaned forward and said firmly, "Do it, no more delays." His voice didn't shake, his hand gripping Catherine's did. That night, after talking Louis into bed and reading him his favorite story for the 3rd time, Catherine stood alone in the nursery. She stared at his old baby photos taped inside a memory book. His first smile, dated June 2018, his tiny footprint inked on a page marked April 24, 2018. The memories were real, but the doubt was growing louder. In her private diary, she wrote one line that night: "What if I didn't notice in time?" William, finding her crying later, simply said, "Whatever the test says, he's our son, always." While the royal couple waited in agony for answers, the other side of the story unfolded in a modest London home. A woman named Alina, watching news coverage with her husband, couldn't shake a feeling deep inside her bones. Her own son Thomas, born on the exact same night at St. Mary's Hospital, had always looked different. But now the resemblance to Prince Louis was terrifying. The email she drafted to the hospital that evening would soon cross into royal hands, and everything was about to unravel. Further, the other family. In a flat in South London, a woman named Elena Marsh, age 34, stared at her television on the evening of August 7, 2025. The news was reporting on DNA speculation around Prince Louis. Her husband Nathan brought their 7-year-old son Thomas into the room after bath time. Alina looked up, saw Louis on the screen, and froze. For the first time, she saw something she could never unsee. The exact tilt of Thomas's nose mirrored in Louis, and Thomas's eyes, that soft grey blue no one in her family had there. It was again Thomas had been born at St. Mary's Hospital just minutes after the Duchess of Cambridge delivered Louise. Alina remembered it clearly. There had been a power outage, chaos in the corridors, and a nurse who brought her a baby wrapped in fresh blankets. She'd been exhausted, overwhelmed, and drugged from a difficult labor. She held the baby, cried, and never questioned it. Until now. That night she scoured the internet for Louis photos. The more she looked, the harder it became to deny the similarities. Nathan dismissed it at first, calling it coincidence. But when Alina showed him baby photos side by side, he went silent. Thomas was exceptionally articulate, loved art and classical music, and had a manner beyond his years. None of their family had that. They'd always joked he was born different. Now the jokes weren't funny. That same evening, Alina drafted a letter to the hospital's administration, detailing the date, time, and concerns. Her hands trembled as she hit send. And 11:52 p.m. Two families, two boys, one night, and a hospital caught in the middle. As the investigations continued, all eyes turned back to Kensington Palace. The results of the DNA tests were about to arrive. William and Catherine sat silently in their study. It was August 18, 2025, 9:15 am sharp. The call came in. Their royal physician gave a calm, conclusive answer, and within minutes, the weight of 7 years of doubt, fear, and spee